In the last week, there's been a lot of talk about the World Health Organization's decision to preliminarily include a new disorder known as gaming disorder. It's important to note that it is preliminary though, it's not a final decision. As to be expected, the announcement was met with outcry and ridicule from a lot of people. They laughed at the idea of gamers being classified with a mental disorder, deeming it ridiculous to suggest that playing games justifies that label. These people, of course, probably didn't actually read the criteria for the diagnosis, and they should if they want to have an informed opinion. As gamers, I think our instinctive reaction might be to defend our hobby, but it doesn't mean we always should. The people who have decided that this may be a valid disorder are likely to be a lot more informed than Bob, who loves Breath of the Wild and waxes weasel to hentai every Tuesday night. That doesn't mean the World Health Organization are necessarily right either though, and that's why I want to make this video. I want to, as objectively as possible, examine all the relevant viewpoints and the evidence to support or refute the inclusion of this disorder. Let's start with the actual description of the disorder. The disorder is described as follows. Gaming disorder is characterized by a pattern of persistent or recurrent gaming behavior, digital gaming or video gaming, which may be online, i.e. over the internet, or offline, manifested by 1. Impaired control over gaming, e.g. onset, frequency, intensity, duration, termination, context. 2. Increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities. And 3. Continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. The behavior pattern is of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The pattern of gaming behavior may be continuous or episodic and recurrent. The gaming behavior and other features are normally evident over a period of at least 12 months in order for a diagnosis to be assigned, although the required duration may be shortened if all diagnostic requirements are met and symptoms are severe. My first impression, and maybe it's yours too, is that the definition is very general. Let me take each section step by step to explain what I mean. Bear in mind also that all 3 of the criteria are required. 1 or 2 aren't enough to qualify the individual for a diagnosis. The first part refers to impaired control over gaming, which basically means that you aren't in control of when you stop, when you play, etc. This is pretty subjective, especially given the varying opinions of what people might consider as too much gaming. For a parent who doesn't understand the hobby or is even hostile towards it, an hour a day when you come home from school might be considered too much. Even more, playing video games at all is considered pointless and excessive by a lot of people. The second criterion might actually be the most ambiguous of all 3. It states that increasing priority is given to gaming to the extent that it takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities. Isn't that the case for almost all gamers though? For anyone with a hobby that they're passionate about. If you're into video games, the chances are that it's going to be more important to you than most, if not all, of the other interests in your life, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. The same goes with daily activities to a lesser extent. Gaming definitely takes precedence over mundane life activities for me all the time, and it's the same for a lot of people. Video games are notorious for being tools of procrastination. I'm not really sure that warrants the label of a disorder. The same could easily be said too for TV shows, movies, exercising, or many other hobbies. The third criterion that must be met isn't exactly specific either. It suggests that the individual's level of gaming has continued or increased despite the occurrence of negative consequences. Going back to the parent-child example, it's obvious to see how a perceived negative consequence could easily be the fault of a parent and not the individual apparently suffering from a gaming disorder. There could be a significant breakdown in the relationship if the parent decides that playing Rocket League for 30 minutes isn't okay. Would playing Rocket League even more in response really be an indication of a disorder? From an outside perspective, the child has increased the apparent problem behavior despite negative consequences. I'm not just handpicking that example to make my point either. Another negative consequence, and negative consequences by the way, very problematically aren't actually defined. Another one could be that the individual is tired on Monday mornings because they spend the weekend staying up late playing games. That's obviously something that a gamer would happily continue to persevere through, and I'm sure we've all been there. Again, if we consider other hobbies, this third criterion seems tenuous. Considering a large amount of the adult population blows their money damaging their liver every single weekend and continues to do so habitually, it's a bit of a stretch to say that the third criterion for this disorder is an accurate and precise representation of problem behavior. Overall, the behavioral pattern of the individual must cause significant impairment of functioning in one or more aspects of their their life. One of my biggest problems with the classification of this disorder is that there doesn't seem to be a distinction between gaming as a cause of impairment and gaming as an escape from it. Furthermore, gaming is likely to be used as a coping mechanism for impairment in many areas of life, whether it's a romantic breakup, forced redundancy from a job, or one of the other shit sandwiches that people are regularly handed in life. It then becomes very difficult, and probably not productive, to decipher whether this perceived excessive gaming is a cause or a symptom of this impairment. On the other hand though, there are definitely people who play video games in excess to a dangerous degree. People have ruined their life by playing games too often, and people have actually died from not taking sufficient breaks while playing. The growing level of perceived addiction to video games isn't something that should be dismissed out of hand. It is a genuine problem, and it is a serious one. However, the research just doesn't exist to qualify gaming disorder as a specific phenomenon that requires its own criteria. There haven't been nearly enough studies which A. correctly and accurately define what problematic gaming entails, and B. provide enough clinical evidence to suggest that gaming disorder is its own specific disorder. One really good scientific article I found suggests that due to the high comorbidity that excessive gaming has with other disorders, that means people who are observed to have a gaming disorder generally also have another psychological disorder. They suggest that it has not been convincingly demonstrated that problematic gaming behavior is not better viewed as a coping mechanism associated with underlying problems of a different nature. This same article proposes 3 significant negative effects that the classification of this disorder may bring for society, and they're really interesting and scary. It suggests that moral panics around the harm of video gaming might result in premature application of a clinical diagnosis and the treatment of abundant false positive cases, especially among children and adolescents. Specifically, the researchers are saying that due to the hysteria that generally surrounds video games, the medical community may be rushing to provide a solution which is actually inaccurate and damaging. Pathologizing gaming behavior dangerously opens the door for the pathologization of a number of other regular behaviors, such as exercise, sex, work, sport, etc. Their second concern regards the underlying research which is conducted to support the inclusion of the disorder. They are skeptical that the researchers might see this disorder as justification for the research that has preceded its creation, which really shouldn't be the case given how sporadic and sketchy the underlying evidence is. Their final concern is the one that resonates the most with me and probably with a lot of gamers. They warn that the healthy majority of gamers will be affected by stigma and perhaps even changes in policy. I think this is a real possibility. If you're a gamer, I'm sure you'll have come across anti-gaming stigma countless times, and wrongful inclusion of a gaming-related disorder may exacerbate the problem. The article also suggests that a diagnosis may be used to control and restrict children, which has already happened in parts of the world where children are forced into gaming addiction camps, with military regiments assigned to treat them for their gaming problems, without any evidence of the efficacy of such treatment and followed by reports of physical and psychological abuse. Furthermore, a raft of attention might be focused on a phantom gaming disorder, neglecting what may be the true social and societal roots of the individual's problems. Whoa, heavy topic. I think it's a really interesting one though, and definitely the most interesting topic I've tackled on this channel so far. I'm always fascinated to hear everyone's opinions, but I'm especially interested this time. Comment below with your thoughts or talk to me on Twitter @OptionalStealth. As always, I'm very thankful for your support. Like the video if you want to keep showing it, and I'll see you all next week.